Sorghum syrup comes from sweet sorghum in a process where the cane is pressed and the juice is boiled down to produce a syrup. Unlike grain sorghum that grows 5 feet tall, sweet sorghum can grow 12 to 15 feet tall. Sorghum syrup is also different from molasses. Molasses is a byproduct of the sugar industry, the dark syrup remaining when all the crystallized sugar is removed. There have been 7 generations of family descended from Dutch immigrants making sorghum syrup in Marion and Jasper County, Iowa, beginning with Frederick Mathis and his son Henry in the late 1800s in Pella, Iowa. Henry and Martha Corver Mathis and his 2 son-in-laws, Henry and Christina Mathis Van Wyck and Lane and Henrietta Mathis Maasdam, made sorghum from 1905 to 1910 near Linville, Iowa. In the spring of 1926, Lane Maasdam bought a gas engine-powered mill from Kellogg, Iowa, and started up the operation with the help of his boys, Leonard, Henry, and Fred, and daughter Marie. The first year they were making less than 1,000 gallons. In the 30s, they were employing 25 to 30 men on a 24-hour basis during the fall sorghum season, which furnished a lot of employment during the Depression for the boys in the neighboring community. During sorghum season, many young women worked in the mill, cooking, cleaning, and doing laundry. In the winter, they would employ 8 men to cut wood to fuel the furnace the following year. Leonard Maasdam and his family continued to make sorghum. Leonard and Gertrude had 3 children, Lawrence Maasdam, Darlene Maasdam Schoen, and Marjorie Maasdam Kramer. Leonard Maasdam moved the mill in 1944 to Henry Austin's farm, a half-mile southeast of the original site.
Grandpa told him, I guess he was the most interested in the mill, sorghum making, and Grandpa told him he could have the sorghum business if he moved it.
He purchased an 1898 Atlas steam engine that had been used in a coal mine near Pella, installed a steam boiler, used the steam engine to power the cane presses and other machinery, and circulated steam and coils to do the evaporating of the sorghum juice. He used the plummies, or the pressed cane, as fuel to fire the boiler. This is the heart of the mill system that is still used today. Leonard's wife, Gertrude, worked filling jars of sorghum along with other women. Charles Kramer married Marge Maasdam, daughter of Leonard Maasdam. They both have been working with the sorghum mill since 1963. They have 3 children, Scott, Gail, and John Kramer.
Bearing goes out, it's just like any other piece of equipment. You got to replace a bearing. If we run a lot of flat belts, and if you tear out a lacing or the belt ends up finally rotting, and you got to replace it.
With much improvement in labor-saving machinery by Leonard and Charles, the mill employs an average of 8 to 10 people, plus family members, to operate during the year. The Maasdam Sorghum Mill produces an average of 8,000 gallons a year, but as much as 18,000 gallons have been made, depending on cane and juice yield. John Kramer, the son of Charles and Marge, and Craig Maasdam, son of Lawrence Maasdam, are the grandsons of Leonard Maasdam. They have grown up helping around the mill. Craig Maasdam does the chopping of the cane, and John Kramer is the cook. Austin, Kyle, Corey, and Luke are the sons of John and Jennifer Kramer. Austin started out with a cleanup job after school. He attended school for welding and has also attended steam engine classes. Austin is now helping with the daily operation and maintenance of the machinery during the season.
If something breaks down, then I'd have to fix it.
Kyle is now learning the ropes in the cook room. For now, Corey and Luke clean the mill after school. Sweet sorghum is planted in May and harvested in September. The Maasdam Company currently plants about 50 acres of sweet sorghum, which will yield an average of 8,000 gallons of sweet sorghum syrup, depending on the yield of juice. In the early years, the sorghum cane was cut by hand, the leaves stripped off, and hauled into the mill. Today, a tractor with a sickle bar cuts the seed heads off. A modified corn silage chopper cuts the stalk into 6-inch pieces and shoots it into a wagon. The wagons are hauled to the mill and dumped into a pit area. The crew harvests just enough to process each day during an 8 to 10 hour shift. There are 2 larger furnaces that connect in the back. This furnace mainly burns the pressed cane and used oil. Wood is used in the morning to get it started. The furnace heats the boiler to produce enough steam to run the steam engine and to cook with steam. Each day during processing, the furnaces are started at 6 a.m., and it takes approximately an hour and a half to get the steam to operating temperature. This is the 1896 Atlas steam engine that came from an old coal mine from Pella. originally installed by Leonard Maasdam in 1944. It powers all the augers and the press in the mill. From the pit area, the cane is moved through the mill by augers. In the corner of the mill, the cane and leaves fall through a tumbler, where a fan blows the leaves outside and the cane is heavy to drop into another auger. The leaves are fed to cattle or spread on the fields. The cane then travels to the mill. The top rollers help lay the cane down, and the large 3-roller press squeezes the juice from the stalks. The pressed cane is dry enough that it continues on an elevator where it can be dropped into the furnaces by an automatic hopper system to be burned, or outside to be spread over the fields. A large pan underneath the mill collects all the juice. It takes roughly 10 gallons of raw juice to make 1 gallon of finished sorghum syrup. Roughly 600 gallons of juice is pressed in an hour. The juice travels from the press into the cook room, where it first flows into the 600-gallon juice tanks. These tanks are part of the filtration process. The juice is brought to almost boiling and then sets for about 10 minutes. It will separate into 3 sections. The top is foam, the bottom is heavy settlements, and the middle juice is pumped to another tank. In this tank, food-grade diatomaceous earth is added to help remove any fine particles. The juice then flows through a filter press and into the cook pans. The juice is boiled for roughly an hour and a half and then transferred to the finishing pan. From the finishing pan, the sorghum is then pumped to the filling room. The sorghum containers are filled with a semi-automatic filler that shuts off by weight. The filling machine was installed in 1944. The empty jars are labeled using paper labels and cornstarch as paste. The jars are filled and put into boxes ready to be shipped. Most of the sorghum is marked in a pint jar that contains 22 ounces of syrup.
So we'll deliver ourselves to Wisconsin, throughout Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas. In Iowa, we're in 2 of the large grocery chain stores in the warehouse. And Wisconsin and Arkansas, we're in a larger store that we do private labeling for them. We also have some companies that use the sorghum as an ingredient. So in Arkansas, there's a barbecue sauce that uses our sorghum. And then in Kansas, there's a bakery that uses it in breads. And then we ship out twice a week, either by UPS or US mail, to all over the United States.